Hello everyone, so I'm doing a reading wrap-up video for the month of March, and I'm also going to do a final book haul. I did get some new books since my last haul, so I'll go over those as well. The book I just finished yesterday, this is Democracy or Else by the hosts of Pod Save America, and I didn't really know what to expect from this book. I just got it. It's a very simple book about just very basic information. I kind of felt like I was reading a book for children, but there was so much swearing and dirty jokes in this book that it's not a book for children. So I didn't get anything out of this book at all. I'm just gonna let it go. I would not recommend this one, especially since I think it was written primarily to get people to not vote for Donald Trump in the last election. And then, that didn't work out, so I really don't see any purpose to this book. I'm assuming their podcast, Pod Save America, is great. So if anyone's a big fan of that show, maybe keep listening to the show. But in terms of this book, it's very simplistic, basic information on democracy and voting. A really great book I read was Autocracy, Inc. by Anne Applebaum. This is another book I got this month. And I just read her other book as well, Twilight of Democracy. That was a reread for me. But this one's her newest one. And this is really going through the different autocracies around the world and talking about how life is in those autocracies and how they're run, basically. It was a very interesting book. And also, she's trying to get people to wake up and see the decline of democracy, and also trying to urge people to protect it. So I thought this book was very valuable. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to rereading this again soon. It's a quick little book, so this was a very fast read. I finished 10 minutes 38 Seconds in the Strange World. I was really, really excited about this book because I heard such incredible reviews of it. The first 2/3 of this book I really enjoyed. This book, it starts out right away. The main character is murdered, and her brain has 10 minutes, 38 seconds to kind of go through her life and kind of reflect on her life from birth to death and the friendships that she has built throughout this life. And I thought all that was great. I really enjoyed this was like a 4-star read for me for the most of the book. I liked the discussion of her growing up, and I think, let's see, in terms of time period, this is I don't even remember. I want to say 1960s, 1950s. I forget exactly, but she's in Turkey, and then she goes to Istanbul. So this is a very interesting historical novel about that time period in those areas. And there were some pretty disturbing things discussed in this book, and I thought it was done really well. I wasn't freaked out or overly upset. I thought it was handled very, very well, and I was enjoying the book. I can't say that it was so disturbing that I couldn't read the book. But then after her brain stopped working, and it kind of went from there. That's when the book, I feel, went completely off the rails, because her friends, the ones that the book was about after her death, were just kind of like this ragtag band of very diverse characters that didn't really like each other. They were all connected to her, but as a group, I really did not like those people because I don't do banter. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. I know a lot of people love cutesy banter, and there was a lot of that going on. So the book went from being very serious and interesting to just like slapstick banter about this like ragtag team of diverse people who went kind of on a heist. And I just did not like any of that at all. And it completely ruined the book for me. This went down, I think, to a 2 or 3 star for me after I finished it. I was very disappointed. I was looking forward to something really great at the end, something really to tie everything together. And whatever the author decided to do was not it. It was just so, I guess, tropey. I don't know how to describe it. It just was over the top. So I'm really surprised this book got nominated for the Booker Prize. It was shortlisted. So the writing was good for the majority of the book. So, but I don't understand what the author was doing. Um, an amazing book I read this month was The White Tiger. I love this book. This book was absolutely incredible. This is another Booker Prize. This one won in 2008. And I think there's a movie on Netflix, which I haven't watched yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But this book was incredible. This book kind of starts out as the main character is an Indian man talking to the leader of China who's coming to visit to look into the capitalist society, how the capitalist system works in India. And he's kind of writing a letter to the premier of China as a capitalist in India. And you kind of, this man's life unfolds and you see how he became the way he is. And it exposes a lot of interesting inequality and racism and all kinds of interesting dynamics of modern Indian society. And it's a dark comedy, so it is funny, but it's also very serious. And I really like this book a lot. This was great. This is definitely one of my top favorite books or fiction books of 2025 so far. Another nonfiction I read is Drift by Rachel Maddow. I really enjoyed this book. This book takes you through military, it's kind of like a mini military history of the United States. It starts out with how the nation was feeling after Vietnam, and then it takes you in through the Reagan presidency. And Reagan, I didn't really know much about Reagan at all before reading this, and then it really talked about how he made a lot of really odd decisions in order to keep America going to war, to the point where he hid it from Congress. He wasn't getting permission, and he got America into some pretty weird military situations that backfired and were really embarrassing. Anyway, so that was a fascinating read, and then it kind of went through trying to get American society to love war again after the horrible loss in Vietnam, and, trying to get these mini conflicts that would be quick victories for the United States so that people could be, proud of the military again and proud of American war power. So this is an older book. So I think she wrote it in 2008. So it's not current. 2012. Okay, so this book came out in 2012. So it's been a while, and I really enjoyed it. I love Rachel Maddow's work, and this was really, really great book, kind of talking, like really calling out the United States for its obsession with military victories. Another amazing book I read was The Netanyahus by Joshua Cohen. This book won the Pulitzer Prize in 2021, 22, one of those years. This book was great. I really had no idea what to expect coming into this book, but another YouTuber mentioned it was very funny, and it is. It's very, very funny. It's historical fiction about Benjamin Netanyahu's family, his father and mother and brothers, and how they visited the United States, or how they visited this professor in kind of a middle of nowhere United States in the 1960s, and the family is just absolutely crazy. And yeah, this book almost had me hyperventilating in a couple parts. I was like, I can't believe I'm reading this. This is insane. So it was just over the top crazy. And at the very end, the author says, well, most of this is basically true. This kind of happened to a friend of mine. I changed some names around, but and as you all know, Benjamin Netanyahu is the current leader of Israel. So that was an interesting book. This sat on my shelf, I think, for 2 years without me even having any idea it was related to any current world leader or leader of any country. So anyway, this was a great read. It was very, very interesting. Definitely makes me want to be even more interested in politics and what's going on. This book I finished, The Sellout by Paul Beatty. And this won the Man Booker Prize as well. I have a lot of prize-winning books this month. Or last month. This book was really hard to read. I'm just going to throw that out right away. Really challenging. This is a satire, and it's very complex. Most of the book, I was really struggling to understand what the author was doing. And I would say about 3/4 of the way in, I kind of understood what he was doing. And that was really great. After I figured out what the joke was, the book got really, really good for me. But it was not easy at all. It was very challenging. But I think when I do want to reread this book, and I think when I do reread it, I will appreciate it a lot more, and I'll understand the joke more. But I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's basically a black man in this middle of nowhere town, and he is raised by a sociologist father who does a lot of experiments on him, and then his father dies, and he has to figure out how to save his town. And the way the book starts out, he's already before the Supreme Court for whatever reason. We don't know why he's before the Supreme Court. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to be challenged, highly recommend this book. Another Anne Applebaum book. This was a reread for me, Twilight of Democracy, The Seductive Lure of Authoritarianism. And I really enjoyed this book the second time around. The first time I read this book was about 3 years ago. It was a while ago. I don't even remember. And I didn't even remember this book at all. And I think at the time, Joe Biden was president, and I was kind of lulled into a false sense of security that everything was fine, democracy was fine, like all those poor countries in Europe who are struggling to maintain their democracies. The United States escaped it. We're good. Everything's okay. And I read this book now, and it was absolutely terrifying. She really called a lot of things that are happening right now in our country. So if you are freaked out about what's going on in the country, I recommend The Twilight of Democracy to really put things in perspective. To understand what is happening to our country. And then another fun book I read was Prequel by Rachel Maddow. This is another book I had for 2 years without really understanding the point of it. I think I tried reading it when I first got it, and I realized it was all just history of World War II. And I kind of lost interest maybe a third of the way in. And then I think she mentioned this book, or she mentioned an important part of this book, Rachel Maddow, on her show. And so I was really made me want to go and read it. So I did. And this book was crazy. This is really just following what happened to the United States during World War II and German attempts to infiltrate with its propaganda, stay out of the war, pro-Germany attitudes, and a lot of the various actors who were within the government and were working for the German government while, claiming to serve the American people. So history repeats itself. So there's definitely some things that happen in this book that are happening now. And it's crazy that Rachel Maddow was able to write this book 2-3 years ago, whenever she wrote it. And after the fact, history starts to repeat itself. And, she says, go check out my book. It's called Prequel. I also finished The Wedding People. This is another book I was really excited about. I think it won... Sorry, I think I'm starting to get sick. My nose is stuffy. The Wedding People. So this book won the Goodreads Choice Award last year for Best Fiction. So I was super excited to read it. And it was okay. It was okay. It definitely wasn't perfect. It's about a woman who's severely depressed or something. I don't know. I think she's severely depressed. Anyway, she wants to basically kill herself. And that's how it starts out. And then she ends up... meeting a lot of nice people who also went through bad experiences, and everybody grows and everybody discovers themselves, and there's a lot of very good things said in this book. I do want to keep it and reread it, and maybe reread it with a highlighter and maybe take some notes, because there's some good passages in this book. There's definitely a lot of wisdom, but there's also a lot of annoying characters and annoying things said and a lot of waste. So I can't say this is perfect, but it was good enough. It wasn't offensive or anything. I also finished Show Don't Tell by Curtis Sittenfeld. And this book just came out on February 25th, and I got the Advanced Reader's Edition. I really enjoyed this. This was just a collection of short stories about writers and family, just various issues. They were good. I really enjoyed this. Every single story I was interested in, just various issues, racism, things like that. I thought this was good. This is my first book by this author, and I enjoyed it. I think I gave this, I forget, maybe 4 stars. I want to say 4 or 5 stars. But yeah, this was good. This was really good. And then finally, I read The Ministry of Time. I love this book so much. This was amazing. It was so weird reading the reviews of people not liking this book. And I feel like a lot of people really did not like this book and did not finish this book. But I loved it. It was an interesting combination of science fiction, thriller, historical fiction, and romance, all in one book. Basically, it's a bit like Loki in a way, the Loki show, where there's this ministry of time, and they take people from the past and they try to integrate them into current society. And the main character is a woman who works for this ministry, and she is charged with taking an actual person from history. I don't remember his name right now, but he was an Arctic explorer who was supposed to have died on a mission, and she's supposed to, he's her charge. She's supposed to help him get situated in the current time period. And I think this is the present is about the same time as us, maybe a little bit towards the future. But this society is about the same time as our current society. So it's very interesting. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was romantic. I liked all the aspects of it. I enjoyed this. I would highly recommend this one. Okay, and then I'm going to go through a couple books that I picked up in the last week of the month. I got The Precipice, Existential Risk and the Future of Humanity. It was just, the premise was very interesting. Let's see, an urgent and eye-opening argument that protecting humanity's future is the central challenge of our time. At the time, I was really feeling I had to read this book, so that's why I got it. I also got this book, The Magic of Reality. I actually already own this book, but it's the graphic version, and for some reason, I wanted to read the non-graphic version. Sometimes these illustrated science books have a bunch of nonsense pictures that have nothing to do with the words, so it was kind of intimidating, so I picked this one up. I also got Yellowface. I did read this book when it came out, and I liked it. And I didn't love it, but I liked it. But now I just kind of want to reread it because it really was fun. It was a very fun read. So I'm glad I got a copy. I also got Fiasco, The American Military Adventures in Iraq. This sounded really interesting to me because of all the war books I've been reading. I also got Fault Lines, and this is an older edition. It's been updated since then. I think it's just written by a bunch of political science professors discussing various political issues. It's like a debate. And I believe this is a textbook that political science colleges or high schools use for students. So it looked like an interesting read. I got What Color is the Sun by Brian Clegg. And this is just various facts, science facts. I also got The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferranti. This book was on the New York Times list of one of the best books on the 21st century, sorry. And it was on my list, so I grabbed it. I also got Friends Divided by John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. I'm sorry, not by Thomas, sorry, by Gordon Wood. Gordon Wood. It's about John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. And I've read other books by Gordon Wood, and they're very, very well done. So I wanted to get this one because this is an interesting friendship that I've always wanted to read more about. And I got Libra by Don DeLillo. And I have to say, this book is just so cheap. Just so cheap. Like, the cover is even crookedly cut. The paper is so thin. I'm just so disappointed. I don't think I paid very much for this book. And I bought this one new from Amazon, which I should not have done that. But this book is just the cheapest. I think, like, if I try to highlight anything in this book, I feel like my highlighter will just go through the entire book. That's how cheap the paper is. So this makes me really reconsider buying things from Amazon, especially books. Like, I don't even feel like this is a real book, so that was disappointing. But I have heard that Libra is one of Don DeLillo's best books, so that's why I got it. And then finally, this book's been on my radar, 1491. This was recommended by a booktuber. This is by Charles Mann, 1491, New Revelations of Americas Before Columbus. So I'm really excited about that one. That sounds fascinating. Anyway, so thank you for watching, and that is the books I read last month and a few more books that I picked up since my last book haul. Thank you for watching.